All right, so we're going to begin with the big topic of tonight, religions of the world. This is part of a series, the challenges, the struggles, and trials of the 21st century. And you may wonder, how is this a challenge? What does religions have to do with being a challenge? Well, it just happens to be that there's unfortunately many conflicts amongst the various religions in the world, and sometimes within a religion itself. There are many factions, many cults have risen in this past generation. And we need to understand a little bit what is going on. What is this business of religion all about? Why are there so many religions? How did religion begin? Why don't we just have one religion? But really part of what I want to do tonight is also to hopefully convince everyone that the many, many wars and conflicts throughout history are not as a result of the many religions and differences between people. Not necessarily. Sometimes, yes. It's mostly man is to blame. Man, not necessarily his beliefs. Man, human nature. Man, of course, could be a good individual, could be a good human being, could conduct himself properly if he chooses to, or he can kill, he can steal, he can be an evil individual. It's not necessarily because of his beliefs. It has more to do with his inclinations, with his own personal agenda, with his interests. Man can be selfish. And this should not come as a surprise, we all know that. But sometimes people associate religion with war, or war with religion. And because of that, I need to clarify, and I will do so throughout the lecture, that the two are not necessarily always related. It can be, there have been religious wars, but you will be surprised. Those wars are not really about religion. If anything, it has more to do with power, with greed, money, and interest, and not so much about the truth, about convincing the other one, I'm right and you are wrong. It's not about that. But we will hopefully try to figure out why, nonetheless, there's so many differences of opinion as to what life is all about, what God is, does he exist, and so forth. In reality, the goal of the lecture is to prove and hopefully to bring about a consensus that all religions of the world could definitely find that they have so much in common. And if that is what they would have pursued, if efforts would have been made in that direction, to see what do we all have in common, and there's so much in common, then this world would have been a completely different kind of world. There would have been peace, there would have been tranquility, much more happiness. But somehow, for some reason, they did not choose what is common. They chose to bring out the differences. They chose, of course, to do that which is opposed to the will of God, even though they claimed that they were doing the will of God. So there's something missing. In other words, there's a lot of good out there. There's a lot of beliefs that share a lot in common, but somehow they can't get it straight. So we need to understand that too. So why do we have so many religions? I think that one of the latest studies on religions and beliefs, by the way, when I say religion, I don't only mean a formal religion, but also different kinds of beliefs. I think the most recent study shows that there's over 4,000 of them today. And it's interesting that if you count, I don't think you can count, but if you were to count how many languages and dialects there are in the world, you would find that there's also over 5,000. Even though many of them are only spoken by a few people, but they're still counted. And you wonder why. Do they have anything to do with each other? So many beliefs, so many religions, so many languages? Not necessarily. The simple explanation of why we have so many beliefs or ways of thinking is what the rabbis tell us. The simple explanation is, in the same way no two people look alike, except perhaps for twins, in the same way, no two people are identical in their features, neither are they identical in the way they think. Right? You ask somebody, what is your opinion? He's going to give you perhaps more than one opinion. I mean, he could have an opinion this morning, he could have a different opinion the next day. The same individual could have different opinions. The more so people who are not related, people who are from different countries, different mentality, different perspective about life. Same thing is with tastes and with beauty. As they say in English, I think beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. There's no consensus necessarily, well, even though there may be to some extent, as to what is considered beautiful. People have different opinions. And I always joke about the fact that we have Republicans and Democrats. Wouldn't it be nice if you had in this country only one party? Or in the Knesset in Israel, wouldn't it be nice that you only had one? I mean, everybody thinking more or less the same. It would be great. We would have peace. Somehow, not everybody thinks the same. Everybody has a different twist on how they see things and how they judge things, what their opinion is about how to solve a particular problem. People come up with different solutions. And it's okay. It's acceptable to have different feelings, different views, as long as there's no conflict about it. As long as you agree to disagree. That's possible. When it gets out of hand, when people kill because of those beliefs, that's when, of course, the problems begin. And it shouldn't have to be that way. There's no reason why people who disagree could not get along, especially if they have so much in common. Brothers and sisters, the fact that they're a family, they have a lot in common. Well, we're all human beings created in the image of God. Hashem gave us the gift of life. This act of giving us life is an act of love. And He wants us to emulate Him. He wants us to be giving to each other. He doesn't want us to compete. He definitely doesn't want us to wage war. That wasn't the whole purpose of creating the world. Somehow, this is what has happened. And we need to understand just a little bit why this has happened. I'm not going to try to cover all the reasons of why people don't get along. That is a completely different subject. Here we're going to focus on religion and faith, and I'm going to show you how there's so much in common. And if more effort would be spent on trying to work together to make this world a more beautiful world, there wouldn't be any need for war. There would be no famine in Africa. This would be a perfect world, because man has it within his means to perfect this world. It was created to a certain extent in an imperfect state, even though God's creation is perfect, but the fact that man is introduced into this creation, it is therefore in an imperfect state. Man has free will, he can rebel, and he has rebelled against God. Nonetheless, it is up to him to perfect it. Man has tremendous power, we know that by now, how much power the human being has. So there's a great responsibility on the shoulders of every human being to perfect this world. Man is told that he's a partner in creation. I've given you life, I've given you the opportunity to serve me. I have a plan, and I want you to carry out this plan. Animals are part of my design too, but you are endowed with speech, you're endowed with intellect, you've been endowed with a divine soul. You're a part of me. And therefore you have great abilities. But those abilities could be used in the wrong way. They could be used in a positive way, or they could be used in the wrong way. And the reason why people have used it in the wrong way is because of what we mentioned in the past. There is free will. This is a world where there is the ability to do good and to do wrong. That's the way God wants this world to be like. He's therefore given us the good inclination and the evil inclination. And that is why life is about choices. We choose all the time. We make decisions all the time. And sometimes we make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes are completely our fault, and sometimes not. What's important is to recognize that if we've made a mistake, is that we do something about it, that we correct it. In order to correct a mistake, you have to admit it. And not everyone is prepared to admit that they've done a wrong, that they've made a mistake, that they've been living their entire life in error. It takes a tremendous amount of courage to come to that conclusion. But it's not so much the courage, it takes a certain amount of clarity, which people don't always have, that they actually made a mistake. They have to evaluate the situation. They have to evaluate the life. They have to see what their decision has led them to, what have been the consequences of making the wrong choices. Who sits down to evaluate his life? Whether it's 10 years or 20 years or 30 years that have transpired, who takes a close look and say, you know what, if I had to do it all over again, I would do it different. And I wish many, many couples would do that and realize that we're only humans and we're not perfect. We make mistakes. But let's muster the courage or whatever it takes to make changes, positive changes, and live a better life. There's always room for improvement. This is on a personal level, but the same is true on a global level. Nations, cultures, religions, if they got together and they say, well, wait a minute, what can we do to correct the mistakes of the past? Our forefathers, previous generations, made so many blunders. Look at all the slaughter. Look at the Holocaust. They seem to agree that it was terrible, but they're not doing anything about it because it's still happening on a different scale. People are still getting killed, innocent people. So what's going on? Why isn't everybody doing something about it? There's the United Nations, supposedly, but they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So something is missing here. Either there's not enough will to do the right thing, or they simply don't know what is the right thing. And that's part of the problem, that there are many differences of opinion. The Russians feel one way, the Americans feel a different way, and the Europeans can't make up their mind yet, you know? Mm-hmm. So part of it has to do with the fact that people really are unsure as to the right approach. There have been many, many attempts to try to correct all kinds of problems in the world that have failed. So it is really, really difficult sometimes to know what the right approach is, and we'll talk about that too. How can one know what the right approach is? In the same way as how can one know what the truth is? Is it possible to know the truth? After all, there's only one truth. There can't be two truths. Truth is truth. But there's some things that come close to the truth. But an absolute truth, there's only one. And man has been endowed with the tools that he needs to recognize his maker and to some degree to know what that creator wants of him. We do have the tools for that. He didn't just dump us down here and ask us to figure it out ourselves. So even though there's some confusion, perhaps we can call it that way, man does have the ability to ponder the creation, to think, and to ask questions. And hopefully he will realize that there is meaning to life, there's purpose to life. Once he's reached that conclusion, he will begin his quest to figure out what that purpose is. He first has to, however, decide, is life purposeful or not? In history, if you look at history, read all the history books, whether it's in the Far East, whether it's in Africa, regardless of the country, regardless of the civilization, this is what people have done. We're talking about now the emergence of religions, right? So, how did the religions emerge? Because this is exactly what they've done. They realized on their own, human beings, some more than others, that wait a minute, what's life all about? Is there a God? Is there more than one? What happens to the soul? Is there a soul? What happens to it after it dies? Why are there earthquakes? Why is there sometimes rain and sometimes not rain? Why is it that so many good people are suffering? Why are there illnesses? People ask these questions. So the human being is smart. He's been given the tools to think, if he wants to look at the world, to look at creation, and to ask questions. And that's what they did. That's not what they're doing today, but that's exactly what they did. Throughout the history, you've had all kinds of people, individuals, who've taken the time to meditate and wonder, wait a minute, what's this all about? They did not all arrive at the same exact conclusions, but they began to think and they arrived at something. Something is better than nothing. So throughout history, mankind has done that. They were not, however, always directed properly. But they did make some discoveries. These discoveries, however, are divided into several stages. The rabbis divide the world into three. The rabbis tell us that this world will last for 6,000 years. And now it's, according to the Hebrew calendar, year 5775. The world, therefore, the 6,000-year world will be divided into three. The first 2,000 years in Hebrew is called the stage of Tohu. In English, I will call it the stage of formation. Everything is being formed. Everything is settling down. People are being born. The world is being settled, built. The second, third, Alpaim Shneim, is called the stage of Torah. The Torah was given to the Jewish people during the second stage. But Torah is not just for the Jewish people. Torah means teaching. It means that there is a stage of faith in God being disseminated and taught throughout the world. All of a sudden, there is an emergence of religions. Faith is being taught. That's when it's happening. In the last 2,000 years is the Messianic era, which means Mashiach can come at any time during this last 2,000 years. We're at the very, very end of it. He could have come before, had we been ready. And what happens during these 2,000 years, just about everything that happens is all in preparation. Remember that. Whatever happens, major event that happens during these 2,000 years is all in preparation for Mashiach, for the end of the world. Okay. Now, during the first 2,000 years, not that much happened. If you read the Torah, you read the Bible, you will see generation after generation being born. Man, however, is somewhat cognizant of who he is. And he's definitely cognizant that there's a creator. It's very, very close to creation. There's only a couple generations from Noah, from Adam. They're much more aware of what their responsibilities are. What are they supposed to do? It doesn't mean that they're going to do a good job necessarily. Remember, man has free will. But at least they're more aware. And what is man supposed to do? What was man told that he needs to do? He was told, listen, you got to take care of the world. You got to procreate. You got to settle the world. Le'ovda u le'shomra, as the pasuk says, as the verse reads in Hebrew, protect it, cultivate the land. As we said earlier, man is a partner in creation. Man is given a very important job. Take care of this world. And part of taking care of this world means that you will have control. You will rule. You will be the boss. Not the animal kingdom, not the birds, not the reptiles. Man, the human being, you will rule. You will be the boss. However, something strange happens. This stage of 2,000 years, the years of formation, the years that people are still cognizant of who their creator is, somehow rebel. They don't do their job. Beginning with the first man, Adam Arishon. Remember? He went against a simple instruction. Don't eat from that tree, from that fruit. So man, first man and woman, rebel. Who else rebels? Dora Mabul, the flood generation. The generation of the Palaga, the ones that built the Tower of Babel, Babylonia, they rebelled, they went against God. Somehow, all these generations who are cognizant, aware that there's a God, a creator, somewhat they know what they're supposed to do, they rebel, they went against God. All right, what happened to them? What happened to all these people who rebelled against God? Well, let's start with Adam. Adam Arishon was kicked out. He was expelled from Eden. All right, kicked out. Why kick him out? What does that mean? When you're kicked out of your home, you're essentially being exiled. Okay? And that's exactly what happened with the Dora Palaga. Those people who gathered to make the Tower of Babel, they were also dispersed or exiled from where they were all over the world. The generation of the flood, however, was not exiled. They were all killed. They were all destroyed with the flood because of the decadence of that generation. It was so bad that there was no reason to leave them. Otherwise, things would just get out of hand and get worse. So God decided, for reasons that only He knows, that that was the best thing to do, is to eliminate them and start all over again. And there are some who may ask the question, well, if God knows the future, then why did He create them? That's a question that comes up from time to time. There are many lessons to be learned from the Torah Mabul. The Torah, biblical history of mankind, is a lesson. Lesson for future generations. If you don't behave, if you don't do the right thing, this is what could happen. So in other words, the event has to happen to teach a lesson. Right? Man has free will. Man can always choose to rebel. This is an example. So we need to learn this. So that example is recorded. That example needed to happen for us to learn from. All right, so we have a certain commonality here between Adam HaRishon and Dor HaPalagad being dispersed, being exiled from where they were originally. All of this is a punishment in a sense, even though being scattered all over the world is good for the world. They're going to build up the world. But it's still called a punishment. What's so bad about it? What's so bad about being exiled? Just find yourself another home. What people don't understand when they read that chapter in the Torah, in the Bible, is that exile is not just being kicked out of your home, it's distancing from God. God says, now I'm going to put you very, very far away from me. I'm still going to be around, but I'm going to be far away from you. Why do you want me to be far away from you? Because part of your tikkun, part of the way you're going to fix the problem that you rebelled, is by asking to come back. By knocking on my door and saying, I want to have a kesher, I want to have a relationship with you. I believe in you. I realize my mistake. Now, I don't want to compare this to a marriage going sour where the wife kicks out her husband and she says to him, I want you to beg me to come back, right? Yeah. I hope that they can make peace in another way. But just for us to understand what this is like, it is pretty bad. You know, when Hashem is upset and says, I created you, I gave you this gift of life. I want so much for you to have all this good that I created. I want you to enjoy it, but I don't want you to forget who gave this to you. And here, man is ungrateful, disobeys God. I mean, it's terrible. And we don't understand it unless we use some sort of example that we understand, that we can relate to. That's why I use the marriage. You know, imagine she does everything for her husband, and he's ungrateful, or he does everything to her. I have to be fair for the, to the men and the women. You know, it's terrible if one is ungrateful, if one rebels, if one is just misbehaving. So the rectification is to come back to search for God. So this is obviously something that is beginning to happen. When? During the second stage of history. During the stage that we called Torah, that actually the rabbis call it Torah, that we called it the dissemination of knowledge throughout the world. All right, how does it begin? Why should man want to search? We said that that is his rectification, but why should he on his own want it? What's forcing him to do it? If anything, man loves to enjoy himself. He likes to rest, he likes good food, he likes to have all the pleasures. Why would he want spirituality, which is what a relationship with God is? It entails devotion to a God that I don't see. I believe he exists. To worship him, to thank him, to praise him. You see, if you see your wife, you see what she does, how hard she works, well, that makes some sense. Well, we're told the same about God, that he does everything for us. He provides us with sustenance, but we don't see it. So how do we expect man to, on his own, want a relationship with God? Why should he search for it? Part of the answer has to do with an innate desire for the soul to connect with divinity, because the soul is divine. The only way we can understand it is by looking at this other half that makes up man. What's the other half? His physical body. Doesn't the physical body have a desire to eat occasionally, once in a while? Food, drink. I hope so. I mean, he's programmed to want these things, otherwise he would die. In the same way, the physical body has an innate desire, natural desire, to want food. The neshama, the soul, has an innate desire, kmiha, as we would call it in Hebrew, a certain, eagerness, or yearning is a better word, the yearning to want to be close to God. Now, we've explained this in the past, that there is this conflict between the physical body and the soul, of course, and that is why sometimes the soul doesn't get what it wants. But the truth is, the reality is that every human being who's created in the image of God, obviously, has that yearning in him. It's dormant sometimes, but it's there. So part of the reason why he would want to form a religion, right? To form a connection, to have faith in God, to do what God wishes of him, is not only to fix, ultimately it's to fix his rebellion against God. That's the tikkun of the world. But on an individual level, every individual has it in him, the yearning to want to get close to God. Plus, as we said before, every thinking person has questions. What does God want of me? Why does God do this? Why is this happening? What's going to happen to me after I leave this world? Is there an afterlife? So people have questions. People are smart. People are endowed with the ability to think. So that, together with that yearning of the soul, is what gets the process started. We must continuously remember that human beings all have the ability to discover God. They all do. They may not know everything about God, and that's perfectly fine, because a lot of God, basically most of God, is concealed from us. While we're alive in a physical body, we can't know everything about it. But we can know something, what he wants from us, what is life all about. So here you have a yearning of the soul, and people who will hopefully begin to think, and some did more than others, enabling all kinds of faiths and all kinds of religions to begin to emerge. Very nice. So, we're hopeful that the world is headed in the right direction. No, it's not so easy. Man gets confused. There's some powers out there that will confuse him. There are a lot of things that will distract him, and there are tons of things that will tempt him. And all of that will not allow him to spend a few moments that are necessary to relate to his Maker and to think about the more important parts of life, the real priority, the connection with God. There's just too many things that will hamper him, get in the way. So what do? Comes along Shlomo Melech, Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, and tells us in Mishlei, in Proverbs, and I'm going to say it in English. The first words in Hebrew, in Tevakshena kakesef, if you seek it like silver and hunt for it like treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and you will find the knowledge of God. If you really pursue this, you really want to find this out, in the same way that you would go treasure hunting, well, you know for sure there's a treasure, not just blindly. You're told there's tons of silver and gold and treasures here. In the same way that you will use tremendous amount of efforts to get to that treasure, if that's the way you search for God, guess what? You will find him. You will understand the fear of the Lord, and you will find the knowledge of God. Is this talking to Jews only? No. He's talking to everybody. If you do this, if you seek it earnestly, sincerely, and you try very hard as you would for money, you're going to find it. You're going to understand it. All right. So far, what have we seen? That at the second stage, people begin to think. People begin to open their mind and to ponder creation. People are having a hard time with it because there's all this confusion. And remember, back then there was the confusion of idolatry as well, idols. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. There was all kinds of things that made it a little bit difficult for man to ascertain the truth with clarity. But he began to think, which is what was important. And the pasuk, one of the verses in the early stage of creation, says the words, "Az huchal likro b'shem Hashem." That is when man began to call out in the name of God. What does that mean? That at a certain stage, man began to relate to God. But others say that that verse is describing not a direct relation to God, but to call all kinds of deities God. In other words, the real God became secondary. In other words, they knew about it, they were aware that there was a supreme being, but somehow, little by little, they moved away from monotheism, the belief in one God, and started believing in multiple gods, that they all called gods. So, regardless of how you interpret that verse, there is a movement to relate to God. There's a movement that begins to think about the purpose, about the meaning of life. But we're right now in the second stage. And in the second stage, who emerges? Who is the first one that comes up? Who appears at the scene to teach the faith in God, in the one God? Abraham Avinu, Abraham. Why? Man needs help. They can on their own understand a lot and know a lot, but they need help. Look, they're turning to a God, but they're turning to many gods. They're believing that there's all kinds of powers in this world, but at least they know there's a power. And they're afraid of this power. They want to worship this power. So they're aware of something, but they're confused. They don't have clarity. Part of the reason why they don't have clarity is not only because they don't think enough about it, but what a lot of people forget is demons. Demons were created just like angels were created, and they have their own job. And I have a whole lecture about that. What's the purpose of the creation of demons? Shadim. But demons were a big problem, especially in that stage of creation, in that part of the world, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, where man somehow associated with them, turned to them, worshiped them. And this connection with the demons got a lot of people into trouble. This is, again, as I said, a whole lecture in itself. What did they do? Why did they do this? Why did they go to demons? What do they want from demons? So I don't want to give you too much right now to digest. It's just, there's too much information. It's just a fact that that existed, and that was something that turned people away from God. And the Torah talks about this, describes this too. It's not just a fact, a historical fact. This is something that the Torah warns us about. Stay away from them. In other words, the Torah recognizes that they are, a certain power out there. Not of course, not a divine power, but they have certain powers. They can do certain things, and people can easily be lured by them and turn to them. And the danger is, of course, that they will turn away from God. So there are many things that can cause man to turn away from God. So you have demonology and you have witchcraft, which partially sometimes has to do with demons and sometimes without demons, but through other impure forces out there, which explains why in Africa and in some Caribbean islands, there's still remnants of all that witchcraft and all that idolatry and all that worshiping of the impure forces. Because there was a concentration in those countries. And you can still see it today. There's all kinds of rituals that are associated with that kind of worship. So here you have Avraham Avinu teaching people, and there's a need for his teaching because people are being misled by these demons, being misled by all kinds of beliefs that they are thinking about on their own or picking up from somewhere else and getting confused. So man wants a connection with God, but doesn't necessarily always know the right address, doesn't know exactly how to connect, but he's searching. That is clear. Man is searching. Everybody pretty much is searching. Some are coming up with their own conclusions, of course, but not entirely. They are picking up some truth. They are picking up something, but not everything, and it's not clear to them. So there's a need of a teacher. Avraham Avinu begins to teach. And what does he teach? The belief in one God. He says, don't get confused by all that you see. There's only one who's responsible for everything. He has messengers. That's all they are. They're not gods. We'll talk about Hinduism soon. There's certain religions that understood that there's a supreme being. But they say, well, he has gods underneath him. But they're not gods. Don't call them that way. That's where the mistake begins. If you call them gods, they're not gods. They don't have permission to act independently of him. Some actually felt, and this is true even about certain factions within Catholicism, that the Satan can act independently of God. Not everybody, not all Christians, of course, believe that. But some, I guess that's at least what they believed early on. I'm not sure if everybody believes it still today. Again, as I said, only some believe it. He's only one. He has all kinds of messengers underneath him. Don't get confused. He's responsible for everything. So that is the message of Avraham Avinu. What does he do? I mean, how long can he continue to teach? Before you know it, man has to leave this world. He teaches his children. Which children does he teach? Well, all his children. Yeah, but there's a difference. He has Yitzchak, he has Yishmael, right? But most people forget that he also had some children with Keturah. Later on, after his first wife passed away, Sarah, he remarries Hagar, who some say is the same person. Keturah is Hagar. And he has a few more children with her. I think it's 6. And he sends them off to the east. Oh, the east? Where? Not to Bali, and not to Tahiti. He sends them to India, to that area of the world. India, it could be Pakistan, it could be Burma, right? That whole area called the Far East. That's where his children are sent on. Not Yitzchak and not Yishmael, but the children from Keturah. He understood that they have a different kind of a soul than Yishmael and Yitzchak, and he sent them on a mission. You got to teach. The same way I taught you, you got to teach. You got to spread the word of God. Plus, he gave them certain abilities. As the rabbis tell us, tradition says that Abraham Avinu taught them how to defend themselves from witchcraft, how to deal with the witchcraft. Not that he taught them how to do witchcraft, because that's prohibited, but because he realized that certain civilizations or certain people, where they're headed, are into that, they had to be taught that. So these kids from the second marriage are given a different kind of teaching than Yitzhak and Yishmael, and supposedly that's what they're supposed to do, is continue the teaching of Avraham Avinu. So, if you turn to the east, and you read your history books, around that time, what do you get? Hinduism. Around that time. Hinduism has various forms, by the way. It has there's all kinds of beliefs within Hinduism, and it evolved over the years. But you see the emergence of that religion or certain beliefs associated with Hinduism around that time, 3,500 years ago, give or take. Judaism is really the oldest religion as a religion of a people. But you had certain beliefs, perhaps, that came earlier, especially the beliefs in more than one God. But they all evolved. So you don't have one religion beginning then. You have certain beliefs that eventually are formed into a religion. Buddhism came later. Not too much later, but came later, about 2,500 years ago, give or take. But what do you see so far? The second stage of creation of this world, this years 3 and 4, because years 1,000 and 2,000 is formation, 3,000 and 4,000 is dissemination of knowledge of God, and then we're going to have the last years, 5,000 into the 6,000 year, right? We're going to have the Messianic era. So during this second stage of creation, we have a lot of religions, a lot of beliefs, a lot of faiths emerging, especially in the East. Of all of them that I've looked into, and I don't want this to turn to a class on religions. That's not the purpose here, to study, what each one professes. I'm just going to point out some basics about them, because the goal here is to show how we do have a lot in common. So, besides Hinduism and Buddhism, another major religion that emerges in the area of Afghanistan and Iran, or Persia back then, is Zoroaster. Now this Mr. Zoroaster is interesting. The reason I use the word interesting is because I don't think he was trying to make money out of this. There's some people who want to have a club and they want to have many members of it, and their goal is to make money and so forth. You can see, if you read a little bit, and I'm not telling you to read, I'm not telling you to go ahead and do research on this, but just briefly, this individual was a very spiritual individual. And he probably studied a lot, he had teachers, and he came up with other ideas later on, after Buddhism. There's a little bit of an argument among scholars as to when exactly he lived. But anyway, it appears to be that he was after Buddhism, sometime around the end of the first temple era, the Jewish temple, right before the second temple. So we're talking about a little over 2,000 years ago, 2,200, 2,300, 2,400 years ago. And he was more monotheistic in his beliefs. That's all we'll say for now. He was more monotheistic. Instead of getting into the details of what exactly he taught, let's just say that he believed in a supreme being and not in the multiple gods that appear in Hinduism. Neither did he preach what Buddhism was preaching, which there is no gods. Buddhism doesn't have gods. Their main leader is not a god, even though they respect him. Still, Zoroaster, or as others would call him, Zarathustra, or Zarathustra, I think in Farsi, he was closer to monotheism. That's all we will say for now. Something is missing. Something is just not there that should be there. And the reason for that is as follows. In religion, there's two very important concepts. One is called transcendence of God, and the other one is called immanence of God. And that has led a lot of religions to some confusion or lack of clarity. Transcendent basically means that God is above this world. He's not a part of this world. He's completely not like this world. That's true. He's not physical, right? There's nothing like him. He's unique. He's not part of this world. And he's very, very far from this world, I guess. Right? You can say that. Yeah. Immanence of God means, however, that God is a part of this world. He's involved in this world. Comes down into this world. Which of the two do you think Judaism believes? The two of them. Not all religions believed in the two of them. A lot of them said, yeah, God created the world, but he left us alone. He left the scene. He's no longer around. Transcendent. Completely transcendent. They believed in a God, but we don't see him. Otherwise, how do you explain the Holocaust? Till this very day, people believe in a transcendent God. He's not around. It makes sense, he created the world, but he left. He's not around. And there are some that say, no, God is not removed. God is part of this world. It was immanence. But Judaism believes in the two. The two are necessary. In other words, he's not really this physical world. He's not a physical being. He's not a physical entity. He's removed. He's above everything in this world. But he's also involved in this world. He listens to our prayers. He knows what's going on. The two of them are true. Not every faith, not every religion was able to figure this out and say to themselves, wait a minute, what kind of a God is this? Remember the Egyptians? They had also trouble. And even the Jews who left Egypt, God perhaps only knows how to punish. Does he know how to provide food and water? You better believe he can do that too. I mean, people had not enough clarity as what's the nature of this God. So you have a belief in a supreme being to some extent. Hinduism, Buddhism, they share certain things in common. But monotheism is not completely seen in its pure form at this stage yet. Zoroaster comes close, but there's still something missing. Not everybody is agreeing, of course, on everything, but at least they're getting closer. What do they have in common? What is it that we find that they have in common? They all seek harmony between body, mind, and soul. Somehow there's an effort being made. There should be harmony. They realize that there's a little bit of a conflict or difficulty in trying to preserve harmony, which leads to joy and happiness, of course, between the body, the mind, and the soul. So in other words, they admit that there's a soul, there's something spiritual about the human being, and if he can somehow just learn how to bring all of that in harmony, he will be so happy. He will have peace of mind. He will have tranquility. And they realize, pretty much all of them, that in order to achieve that, you got to connect with God. Or you got to connect to a certain awareness, depending on who we're talking about. Hinduism and Buddhism both believe in reincarnation. For those of you who know about the Kabbalah, and Judaism teaches that too. Whenever I talk about reincarnation, they tell us, what? Judaism speaks about reincarnation? I thought that was Hinduism. Where do you think it comes from? They all understood reincarnation. Hinduism and Buddhism actually share that in common. They also talk about something called karma, which you may have heard of. That has something to do with one's fate and destiny. And even though Judaism does not agree with them on every detail of how they perceive karma or reincarnation, still the concept is the same. There is something called reincarnation, and the purpose of it is somewhat the same too, for rectification. Got to come back to fix something. So what do we see? Hey, there's something in common here. They're starting to believe certain things the same. They don't all agree on everything. That's because they don't have a teacher necessarily. They're trying to figure this out on their own. Is that possible? To figure this out on their own? That comes, now I'm going to tell you a big surprise, a big revelation. What did we say till now? How are people able to figure out things? Because they have a soul, they are thinkers, and perhaps somebody's teaching it to them, and that is how they're coming to these conclusions, including Mr. Buddha, including Hinduism. Now these individuals are not simple individuals. Remember, they're not doing this for the money. I don't believe any of these teachers, or most of them did it for the money. How are they arriving at their conclusions? Where are they learning this from? Who's teaching it to them? tell you a story. I think it was sometime in the 1950s, approximately. There was a famous judo wrestler in Israel by the name of, Rafal. And originally, in the very beginning, he was not so religious. He was a secular Jew. And he traveled all over the world. He was into judo. And he became interested somewhat in the Far East religions. What did we say before? There's a yearning in the soul. Life is empty, devoid of any meaning. There must be something out there. And those guys must have it right. Sir, why don't you look in your own backyard first? You know, you're Jewish. No. So for some reason, a lot of Israelis go to the Far East. Okay. Now, to go see this famous guru, he had to fast a couple of days. He had to dip in some river. He had to abstain from all kinds of pleasures for several days until he had a chance to go see this guru. All right. So he did everything. And don't think that this is in New Delhi or in some big city. This is in some mountain far away, removed from anything. And to get there was hard. So for him to get to that meeting with the guru, it took a lot of effort on his part, but he was prepared to do it. Finally, he comes to the guru. He sits down. And the guru asks him, "Sir, where are you from?" He says, "I'm from Israel." He says, "Israel? Shame on you. Mm-hmm. You came all the way from Israel to see me. Where do you think I know my stuff from? It's from you guys." Mm-hmm. From Judaism. He studied a lot from Judaism. "And I know what you went through to come to me." He says, "It's in your own backyard. Why are you coming so far?" A lot of Jews don't know this, that there's so many valuable teachings in our own tradition in the Torah. And a lot of these teachings, of course, were taught to these individuals in the Far East, not only by Avraham Avinu, not only through his kids, but through other teachers. Many of you from Iran, you know who Rumi was, right? Famous individual. Where did he learn what he learned? Some beautiful things, actually. Some of the things that he said are beautiful. He went to Iraq. He traveled to Turkey. He met with many scholars, with Jews as well, with Muslims, with a lot of people, scholars, teachers. So there were teachers all along, but that's not enough. So now comes the big surprise, the big revelation. We have a tradition. Eliyahu Navi says this, Eliyahu the prophet says, "Nishba'ani, I swear to you, ben ish, ben isha, ben eved, ben shivcha, ben goy, ben yehudi, hakol lefi ma'asav ruach hakodesh ora alav." I swear to you, he says, whether it's a man or a woman, a Jew or a non-Jew, a slave or a free man, regardless, depending on how his deeds are, if he's a pure man, he can attain ruach hakodesh, he can attain divine inspiration. Every human being has the ability to attain, to acquire divine inspiration, to be inspired by God. Inspiration. And what is an invention? An invention, the light bulb, the telephone, what are these? These are not inspiration. These are also inspirations. Why did he think of it and not somebody else? In the same way that we have these kinds of inspiration, we have spiritual kind of experiences, visions, in dreams. Now some of them are false. I mean, depending where it's coming from, that you have to be very careful that it's not from the impure source. Some things do come from the impure sources. But it can be a divine inspiration that a person is experiencing. It's not a prophecy, because prophets were something completely, it's a different league. But to be divinely inspired, every human being, regardless of his background, man or woman, depending on his deeds, if he's a good man, a good person, he may get to that level. All of a sudden he might think of something. Remember, he has a soul, and that soul is capable of tremendous heights. He can really understand a lot if he begins to think, if he has direction from a good teacher, of course, or if he's lucky and he's divinely inspired. As these beliefs are being formed, they take on shape. They provide certain disciplines, they teach certain values, directives. They become formalized, all of these beliefs. This is what you should do, this is what you should not do. And this is from their own understanding. And this is definitely helpful for all of humanity, to provide a certain level of discipline and direction in life, and certain moral values that all of these pretty much share. Be good, do good. I think that's very, very normal. I think there's nobody disagrees with that. Almost no one. The performance of good deeds is definitely something that is very emphasized in many of these beliefs. How do you achieve peace of mind? Can also happen through meditation. That is why you have some emphasis in some of these religions on meditation. But it's not so much the meditation. The ultimate goal is connecting with God. They all pretty much agree with that. That if somehow you can get yourself to connect with this supreme being, with this power out there, even though they're calling it different names, you will achieve a certain level of tranquility. This is important. If you can do this in your lifetime, then this is a big achievement. Nobody talks about making money, right? And all the kinds of things that we would perhaps value today. Today's values are very, very different than the past. They're more materialistic. These are all spiritual values. It's something which they all share in common. Okay, who else is coming to the scene at that time? You have Gnostics later on. Gnosticism are groups of people who stress spirituality and de-emphasize material. In other words, they said you have to get away from everything that's material and just immerse yourself more in spirituality. Somehow, they were getting close to the various types of Gnostics because they were embracing spirituality from a different angle. The problem is that they were completely depriving that which is physical. And Judaism says no. Life is about physical entities. We need to eat, we need to drink, we need to get married. You can't just completely do away with that which is material. But you have these beliefs at least that are emphasizing spirituality, realizing that this world or this life involves the two of them. But I have to emphasize more spirituality. So some took it to an extreme. They are the ascetics, the Nazirim, that no wine, no this, no that, no. You can't do that. I mean, we don't know that. Judaism comes and teaches that certain things are permissible as long as it's done with the right measure. As long as it's not overdone, it's permissible. So for that we need Judaism. Judaism came onto the scene because the mitzvot of the Torah, the commandments that we have, cover every aspect of man's life. But they were not intended for everybody. But what was intended is that this Jew should be a teacher, should be a light unto the nations and teach and guide. How are you going to guide? What are you going to give them of the 613? Only 7. The 7 Noahide laws, which we'll talk about another time. The basics. So people are coming up with certain beliefs and ideas, and they're getting close. They're realizing the importance of connecting to God. But they don't have complete clarity. There's a lot of stuff out there that is confusing them. They don't always have the right teachers. That's when Judaism comes into the scene. But before we get into Judaism and Islam and Christianity, there's also something called pantheism. For those of you who are curious, pantheism says that nature is God and God is nature. In other words, all kinds of beliefs. There is something out there, but it's all part of nature. And that is why I was telling you before, there's transcendence and there is immanence. Transcendence means, yes, God is involved here, but he's also transcendent. He's above. He's not part of this. He's not physical. But you have this group of people who are thinking that way. Then you have the multiple gods, the believers in multiple gods, the polytheism, and who believe in many, many gods, even though some they claim are lower, still they are realizing that there's so many powers out there and maybe they all should be worshipped. So you have a tremendous amount of people in the world, millions of people, today too, not just back then, who do believe and do relate to this God, just a little bit in a different way, and understand that connecting to this God or relating to this God will bring tremendous benefits to them. They understand this somehow. But they don't have clarity. Now, what happened after the destruction of the Second Temple? Now, we're going to see something that a lot of people are unaware of. After the destruction of the Second Temple, something incredible happens. This is my favorite part of this whole lecture. What have we spoken about till now? All these kinds of faiths, beliefs, religions, they have a lot in common. There's a lack of clarity, however. There's a lot of good teachers out there, but it's not all monotheistic exactly, right? Except for Judaism. Judaism is out there teaching, but unfortunately, Judaism is not doing too good of a job. First temple is destroyed. Second temple is destroyed. God says, I gave you, the Jewish people, the Torah. You were supposed to be a teacher for all these nations in the world. You should have guided them. Had you done your job right, this would have been a different kind of world. But you failed. Now what happens? If you look at history, and for some reason I haven't seen anybody talk about it, but it's so obvious to me. After the destruction of the Second Temple, two major religions come to the scene. Christianity first, close to 2,000 years ago, and then later on, about 1,600 years ago, Islam. Why did they just wake up? Why now, not before? Right? And what do these two have in common? They are monotheistic for the most part. Some people have a problem with Christianity believing in the Trinity, whether that's monotheistic or not, but let's forget about that detail right now. They are closer to monotheism than Buddhism or Hinduism, right? There may be other beliefs out there that are more monotheistic, perhaps, but they are smaller. I'm talking about major religions right now. These are the major religions today. And that's interesting. Why did they decide to stop being pagan, which what the early Christians were, and to embrace monotheism? Abraham tried so hard. Why didn't you listen to him back then? What happened to you? Come on, it must have been, somebody must have offered you some money. I mean, what's tempting you? I mean, why are you getting away from believing in so many gods? This is very, very significant because this explains so much. The destruction of the Second Temple meant that the Jews are going into exile again, meaning that they didn't do their job. Comes along the minister of Esav. Remember who Esav is? Who's Esav?
Jacob's brother.
The brother of Jacob. Jacob being the father of the Jewish people. The two being sons of Yitzchak, grandchildren of Abraham. Comes along, according to the Kabbalah, the minister of Esav in heaven and says, God, give me religion. I can do a better job. I can convert the entire world to believe in you. Try me out. Esav is not supposed to be a religious man. Remember, he says, I don't want to have anything to do with the blessings, with the first right, I should say. You know, with the firstborn rights, the Bechorah. Yeah, Yaakov, you take it. You're a religious man. Remember that? Later he complains, why did Jacob steal his blessings? But anyway, at first he wants to enjoy life. He's a physical man. But spiritually, he's a son, remember, of Yitzhak, grandson of Abraham Avinu, and the minister of Esav. The power of Esav in the heavens says, Hashem, I want to be in charge of religion. I'm going to do a better job. Did they do a better job? No. Obviously not. But that is what is going on. On a Kabbalistic level, on a spiritual level, the minister of Esav wants to be religious all of a sudden. And why is Hashem allowing this? What did we say, what the last 2,000 years about? It is all in preparation of Mashiach. It is all the Messianic era. Hashem wants to prepare the whole world to be monotheistic. He's therefore helping, indirectly, people who want to be monotheistic. And two major religions are formed. Now, the Christians didn't do it on their own. The Jews helped them. Remember, the first Christians were Jewish, in a sense. Right? Who basically brought this about? They obviously embraced it, they went along with it, but, right? Without having to go into too much depth of how it actually began. You know what I mean. I mean, it's coming from Judaic sources. They accepted the Bible. They call it the Old Testament, but still, they accept it as the Word of God. Wait a minute, what? They accept this? That this is the truth? Yeah. There's a lot of common ground. They have some issues with Judaism, right? I'm not going to get into all of that right now. But wait a minute, they accept it. They have converted themselves to semi-Jews, monotheism. Islam, later on, the same thing. They pretty much say, and they're very strong about it, and they're very monotheistic, even more so than the Christians. There's no Trinity. Right? La ilaha illallah. There's only one God. And that's part of their shahada. You have to believe in that. Wait a minute. Islam, Christianity. Why now? God is preparing the Messianic era. He's preparing the whole world. And they make up the majority of the world. Even though there's a lot of Hindus and Buddhists too, there's a great percentage of Muslims and Christians. And there's so much common ground with Judaism. They're pretty much monotheistic. And why are they successful? Because we have a tradition that if something is a pure lie, it doesn't last long. Sheker en lo raglain. Sheker, falsehood, does not have feet. It eventually evaporates. It falls. It collapses. Truth will last. Truth may be suppressed, but it's always going to be around. Something that is not exactly accurate, but has some level of truth to it, can succeed. There's a lot of things here in Islam and in Christianity, and in other religions too, that is common to everybody. There's something here that is common to just about everyone. And that is, of course, something that is spiritual. Something that the soul feels. Somehow everybody is able to tap onto this. Then, of course, you have the philosophers who were able on their own, through their philosophies, to also come to the same similar conclusions. They don't have all the information, but there's so much common ground. What can one do, therefore, to make sure that he does arrive at the right conclusions and have more clarity? So there's another verse that says like this: know him in your ways, and he will straighten your path. If you know him, if you know God, and you want to do only what God wants of you and nothing else, and you don't have any interest of your own selfish interest, he will straighten your path, and he will show you the right way. This is what the Jew was supposed to do. The Jew was supposed to be the guide. He was the one that was entrusted with the right teachings. But he failed. At the very least, Judaism, for those who picked it up, either in their teachings, in the Torah, or through other means, at least are able to see that this God, that Muslims also believe in, and Christians as well, is against asceticism. In other words, don't deprive yourself of everything that God has given you. You want to eat? Just make a blessing over that which you eat. Get married for the right reasons. Not because of lust, but because you want to procreate, because you want to share your life with another individual, because you know that marriage will bring about man's maximum potential, that it's not good to be alone. In other words, do things for the right reason. Asceticism, or depriving yourself of all the things that God created, is not right. Judaism teaches a lot. A lot of nations, a lot of people have adopted many of the values that Judaism has to teach because it makes sense. They relate to it. What else is no good? Extremism. There's a lot of fanaticism in the world. Judaism doesn't preach that either. Anything which is extreme is no good. Be tolerant. Be kind to everyone. Everybody's created in the image of God. So getting back to Esav, Christianity and Islam. What gives Esav any rights? Why should he be given permission? Not only because he's the son of Yitzhak, but because of what was told to his mother. These are two great powers, Yaakov and Esav. They can both not rule at the same time. When Yaakov is up, Esav is down. When Yaakov is down spiritually, Esav will be on top. And this is what Isaac told his own son. Even though he took your blessings, if he doesn't observe the Torah, if the Jew doesn't do his job, you will remove the yoke from you. You will go after him. And the same with Ishmael. The Jew was always suffering. In the hands of who? Not the Hindus and not the Buddhists. In the hands of Ishmael and Esav only. These two will be the only ones to give him a hard time. Why? Because they will be the ones to remind him he's not doing a good job. Esav number one, more than anyone else. Because Esav is upset. Yaakov, you took away my blessings. If you don't deserve them, then give them back to me. I want the religion. You see? So the Jews, whenever they did not do a good job, they were not being the teachers they're supposed to be, they suffered in the hands of Esav. They suffered in the hands of Ishmael. But why Ishmael? Ishmael is circumcised. So the Zohar teaches that because he's circumcised, he has a connection to the land, to Eretz Israel. And that is why we have trouble there, till this very day. It's all politics, but it's more than politics. There's something spiritual here that the politicians don't realize. No matter what you do, you won't be able to bring complete peace unless people behave themselves. If the Jews do not want to lead a spiritual lifestyle, then Ishmael will come and remind them. Esav will remind them. That is why there's partially anti-Semitism. There are many reasons for anti-Semitism, but part of it is from God. Remind my kids that they're not doing a good job. So that is why we have the emergence of the power of Christianity, of Esav and Ishmael during the last stage, called the Messianic era, in preparation of the arrival of Mashiach, in the preparation of the world to be more monotheistic in the belief of God. But also because the Jew, unfortunately, did not always do his job. Just want to finish with just a couple of additional points. We said before that Christianity wanted to prove that they were better. They did not always do a good job. The reason for that is because a lot of times man's interests are in conflict with God's interest. The Crusades pretty much is an example of this. Even though they called it a war in the name of God, it wasn't really in the name of God. Many wars are pretty much not because of God, even though they call it that way. Just because they call it that doesn't mean it's that. So many people, innocent people, were slaughtered. They were not united, these people, for a common goal. You have a lot of people who are simple people who were just, drafted into this army so they can have more manpower. And when they went through country after country, they slaughtered people, pillaged the country. Many, many Jews were slaughtered in all these crusades. Unfortunately, this is something that happened throughout history, that many, many people lost their lives through all these kinds of war in the name of religion, even though it was not really in the name of religion. Had it truly been something that God wants, it wouldn't have been done this way, through the killing of innocent people. Somehow God would have communicated, do it in a different way. Even though you may bring all kinds of examples from the Bible where God commands the Jewish people to go and conquer, even though conquering involves sometimes causing a lot of pain to the population living there. All these populations who were conquered were always offered by the Jews to accept the Noahide laws, not to be idolatrous, because idolatry is not compatible with the Torah. And if the Jew is going to be settling that land, he cannot assimilate to that way, into that culture. So either you accept the 7 Noahide laws or you leave, otherwise there is war. That is a different kind of a situation. But otherwise, in the name of God, to kill people, we're all created in the image of God. We're all His children. God loves us all, as long as we do the right thing. So many of these religions that emerged after the Second Temple era, even though they're more monotheistic, unfortunately many times they failed because they did not always have proper guidance as to what is correct and acceptable. You have human beings involved. Without teachers,
who may be fanatics, who may be extremists. What do you think you have today? We have a lot of extremism, fanaticism, which is not well guided. Because people have interests. People have their own interpretation of things. And when there's no clear direction from above, that's what happens. And even if there is no clear direction from above, what did we just say before? If man on his own were to want to do everything properly, for the sake of God, God would direct him. And that is why the Torah, why the rabbis put tremendous emphasis on the term called L'Shem Shamayim. Do everything for the sake of heaven, and you will succeed. Pinchas, remember the story with Pinchas, got up and slaughtered that individual who committed an adulterous act in public. He was a young man. Wasn't he afraid? They were going to gang up on him and kill him. How dare you kill the leader of the tribe? He did it for the sake of heaven. So miracles happened. He was protected. He didn't care about himself. He was upset for the honor of God. So when somebody does something for L'Shem Shamayim, he succeeds. Today, unfortunately, a lot of groups within Judaism and other religions have divisiveness, have additional groups within groups, infighting as we call it, machloket. Why? People are either disappointed, or people are money hungry, power hungry. So if it's not L'Shem Shamayim, if you don't want to do things properly for the real reasons, that's what this could lead to. It could lead to war and conflict and divisiveness, even within the same family. So you have all these cults all of a sudden coming up from everywhere. Baha'i, all of a sudden, here comes to the scene. Nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. You know, he's teaching his own teachings, but why have so many cults and so many differences in different kinds of teachings? Either people are disappointed, people realize that these guys are corrupt, or people want all kinds of other things in life. I don't know. You don't have clear direction from above, and if you don't do things for the right reasons, for the sake of heaven, that's what happens. Another big problem in religion was that a lot of religions forced others to convert. Judaism does not force anybody to convert. It's tolerant. It's accepting of others. Just keep the 7 Noachide laws. You want to join, you want to convert, fine, but we don't encourage it. You can have a very good life and have a share to the world to come if you keep the 7 Noachide laws. Other religions wanted to impose their will, to force people to convert, and that of course led to a lot of bloodshed too. What's wrong with forcing people? What's wrong with killing others in the name of God? The biggest problem with that, besides murder, is a very important idea that is expressed as follows. Whoever loves God truly loves God's children. Whoever doesn't love some children of God doesn't love God. If you don't like certain people, I'm not talking about right now the wicked. You don't like some of God's children just because of their race, their color, or their beliefs, it means you don't love God. If you love God really, then you love all His children alike. Those who are not living by this, then obviously their love for God is not pure. Finally, I'd like to make a suggestion. Many of you have seen soccer matches, basketball games, baseball, whatever you like, football, Olympics. What do you see in these games? One wins and one loses. I'd like to make a game where everybody wins. How about that? Why should it be that only one wins and the other one loses? That's what this world has looked like. You know, some people want to win and they don't care if the other one loses. God wants everybody to win. We should all therefore want that God should win. Why should one person suffer and one person not suffer? Everybody should succeed. Everybody should do well, which is what marriage is all about. Marriage reminds us of the oneness. It's a reflection of the oneness of God with His creation. The marriage of man and woman, it's a reflection of the oneness. Hashem wants to be one together with all of His creation. That's part of what marriage represents. It's a true reflection of being one, being united. That's what this world needs to learn, to be united, to not look at all the differences, because people are different. Of course they're going to be different, but there's so much in common. And if that's what we emphasize and if that's what we bring out, it will be so beautiful. Imagine everybody coming together and joining to do the will of God. Let's try to figure out not what we want, but what God wants. Obviously, it takes a lot of time to to figure this one out, because not everybody has clarity still of what God wants. But what did we say before? If we do things right, and we're honest, sincere, and we don't have our own interests in mind, God will guide us. He won't want us to make a mistake. He wants everybody to win. And right now what He has done at the very least is to prepare the world for the ultimate coming of Mashiach. And at that time, all of us, B'ezrat Hashem, will be fortunate to the fulfillment of the Prophet's word. At that point when Mashiach comes, God will be the king. God will be the supreme being. God's name will be one. B'ezrat Hashem, amen, very soon.